If people see you living it joyfully, whether that's being an artist, being trans, they will come around. I do believe that. Like, and if not, you're going to find those people to go be joyful with. You know, you're going to find your tribe and you are going to fly. Being an artist is going to change you. It's going to change everything about you. And, you know, and it might change the routines of your day. It might change your outlook. It might change your social circle. And yes, there are some people that you are definitely going to want to stay connected to, but they're going to have to accept that you're changing.
Dean, Atta, I am so glad to be back in conversation with you and to be reconnected to you in this space. You were one of Busy Being Black's first guests, so thank you so much for agreeing to come back.
Oh, I've been looking forward to it. I thought we've waited long enough. It's time to return.
To open my conversations on Busy Being Black, I ask my guests the same question. How's your heart?
I think for the past few months, maybe even longer, my heart has been constantly racing. I've even been to the doctor about it. So it's been a thing. So when you said that was going to be the first question, I was like, how honest shall I be? So there's the physical thing of like, like kind of often feeling like everything's a bit too much. I'm a bit overwhelmed, but then also I'm like really grateful for how much is happening and how many people I'm getting to do beautiful things with. And yeah, so it's balancing, you know, the overwhelm with the gratitude, with the health concerns. So it's a lot. So my heart, in a more abstract way, is very full. I feel very grateful. I feel very, blessed right now. And also enjoying returning to reconnect with lots of people, you know, including yourself. Like, I feel like there's been a time where everyone had to go off and do their own thing. And now we're finding each other again and saying, let's be together. Let's do things together.
I love what reconnect brings up for me, because it makes me wonder, what made you realize that you were reconnecting with someone?
Well, I've had some physical distance. So I moved to Glasgow from London for 3 years. So from 2019 to 2022, me and my partner were living in Glasgow. So everyone, you know, knew that's where we were. Until lockdown, people could come visit. And after lockdown, people could come visit. But, you know, there was that period where we couldn't see our family back in London and our friends. So that was quite a thing. And in some ways, we got used to not seeing some people, and it was accepted that we were seeing less people. And then that kind of just rolled on for a while. But like, yeah, it's been interesting. I just, physicality or geography shouldn't be what determines relationships. We have so much technology and ways of staying in touch that it's quite funny that you can lose touch with people. Like, that you haven't fallen out with them. You've not said, we're not talking anymore, but you just do lose touch with people. Sometimes people are, you know, in new relationships, having children, having a tough time, and they don't want anyone to know, so they kind of retreat as well. So I try and watch out for that. I try and not let my friends kind of slip into a dark chasm and think that they're unreachable, you know. But because I've been that way, you know, I've been that way.
Well, I was just thinking about our first conversation. We were both coming to that conversation with mental and emotional health really on the top of our hearts and minds. You had just recently dealt with a suicide. You were very curious and questioning about these relationships. So in the 8 years since we've had that conversation, how has your relationship to mental health changed or evolved?
I've had an amazing Black queer therapist who really gets me and sometimes is ahead of me on some of the topics I, you know, bring to them. And it's really exhilarating. Like, I enjoy our sessions so much. You tell them something that's happened and they're like, well, that's, you know, and they get into it. And I'm like, well, I'm actually kind of chill about it. and they're kind of like, oh, okay, well, if you're okay, then we don't have to. And it's just really funny, just someone that just gets it. You never need to explain your point of view or your lived experience. They've been there, they've done that, because they're a bit older than me as well. I just feel in really safe hands. And so I enjoy those check-ins, and they feel more like check-ins. There never feels like there's a crisis, or rarely. And so that's been really key. And then I wrote a memoir, so that was a really good way of kind of taking stock of my life up to that point. So my memoir came out when I was 38, so like two years ago, and that was quite young to write a memoir by all accounts. Everyone's like, you're so young, and I'm like, but I've lived. So I was really happy to kind of like put that all down and have my therapist by my side, to go through that process. And then now that it's been out there a while, I feel like I've drawn a line under a big chapter of my life. And I feel that I'm in this, like, I call it my big man stage of life. I feel like a grown up. I feel like an adult. I feel like I can sit at the big people table. I just feel a lot more comfortable in my skin. I feel a lot more kind of at peace. I still have times when I'm, overwhelmed, and I still have times when I might withdraw, but it's more like withdrawing to recharge, rather than like retreating and kind of like hiding. So I feel I've just got a lot more strategies, coping strategies, support, and like I can see the early signs of when I need to like something needs to change, something needs to be addressed, and I do that.
I'm very curious about memoirs and the archive. I hadn't considered Busy Being Black an archive until Travis Alabanza called it one, and even then I was like, no, that's something that like fancy curated people do. Like that. I felt like that's not something that we do down here, and down here in the streets, as it were. And I was in conversation with Ajamu, the fine art photographer and archivist in Manchester. It was part of the Kinfolk Collective gathering. And we had this really beautiful conversation about what an archive is. So I feel like your memoir is a great opportunity for me to ask a question about how we decide what is shared and what is not shared, what is quote unquote kept and what is discarded. How would you kind of enter into that?
I think going back through my memories and going back through my, physical archive, like I've got a lot of stuff, and me and my partner bought a flat this year, and then my mum was like, okay, you can come and get everything from my house. And so now I kind of had to take everything, and I've got all my old notebooks, I've got like everything from school, I've got everything from when I used to perform in musical theatre, I've got photos.
And has that been intentional, or it's you just kind of naturally accumulate or keep the things you've
I keep things. I keep anything with my name on it, like flyers for events and programs for events. And then obviously I have a lot of books, and a lot of them are signed by the authors. And then I also have a signed copy of just like a printout of the poem Still I Rise by Maya Angelou, signed by her. And so that was a really special thing that, I did an event which was to celebrate her 80th birthday, and but she unfortunately couldn't fly because she wasn't well at the time. Artifacts, have a whole story attached to them, and I think I have many artifacts like that. I've got a photograph of myself and Michael Jackson from when I was in Oliver in the West End, and he came to see us perform, and we got the whole company to line up and take a photo with him. But that brings up loads of stuff for me, because like the two boys closest to him are the boys that played Oliver and Artful Dodger, and I'm just kind of like a touch behind. And I used to think to myself when I was younger, I should have been a better actor, I should have done better in my audition. If I was Oliver or Artful Dodger, I'd have stood next to Michael Jackson, not behind him. And like, this is kind of like, it really brings up like how self-critical I was, even as a child. And some of that comes from being dyslexic and really struggling with, reading and writing when I was young, even though I loved writing, I loved storytelling, and I loved reading stories. It was just so hard all the time. And I didn't find out till I was at university. And then like, university was so formative for me, so I've got everything you could imagine from uni. I've got my essays, I've got my textbooks, I've got my certificate that says I've got dyslexia and dyspraxia. I've got all the flyers from all the poetry nights I did on campus and all the drama society plays I was in.
But it was an intentional decision to keep it because you knew at one point that you were going to want to be able to look back?
Well, I think my mother is a hoarder. But I can get rid of things I know I don't need. Whereas she has clothes in every size she's ever been. Like she has, even when there's stuff that I was surprised she let go of my stuff, because I'm glad to have it all now because I've got to organize it better. But I thought she was kind of hanging on to it to hang on to me, but actually no, she'd rather have the space to hoard more of her own stuff. But I think we kept everything. So, I have even my confirmation certificate, my baptism and confirmation certificates. I have so much stuff like that. It's wonderful, and it will be whittled down at some point to give to an official archive, and it will be the stuff that's relevant to me being a writer. But I love for myself to find these odds and ends that as soon as I pick it up and look at it, sometimes I don't recognize it at first, and then a memory comes back and I'm like, whoa, that's from the cruise ship we took, from Cyprus to Egypt. And when I saw the pyramids for the first time, and I was so obsessed with the pyramids, and ancient Egypt was like my main obsession when I was a kid. And, I got my name in hieroglyphics on a little pendant, and I don't think about ancient Egypt at all anymore. And it's just so interesting to think how we shift and we go from these phases that totally define us at the time, and then we kind of forget about them. And I think if we don't have the artifacts or a record or a diary of these things, we might even forget who we've been, how many different versions of ourselves there have been, You're feeling that.
Listen, for whatever reason, this season, these different opportunities have surfaced, and they've been asking for very specific things. Mm-hmm. And I've had to go, oh yeah, shit, I did that thing. And I was finding documentation. I was going, oh my God, I forgot that I curated an events program for Tate, for Zanelli Muholi. I've done all this amazing shit that I don't know why, but I just, once I've done it, it's out of my mind and I don't know. And so I really feel that part of the issue with that, about being someone who excels and just moves on to the next thing, is that I've also forgotten my own excellence. And when I forget it, it's like I'm learning everything from the beginning again. I feel like I'm always proving myself. What do you think that we can learn as queer Black people from the process of creating your memoir, around how we document and annotate and tell the story about our lives?
Yeah, keep it all. Because it's so... not everything can be found online. We lived before the internet and, social media. And I'm so grateful to have magazines from the club nights where they had the photographer and then you had to go and find the free magazine and find your photo in the back. I love having those types of things because, that was before social media. That's how you were documented in the club. And I've reconnected with people from my kind of bootylicious Carabana, going out days in the Black queer scene, and they are doing amazing things, like choreographers, stylists, all sorts of wonderful people, and they remember me from the dance floor. I hardly remember me from the dance floor, and so it's just seeing the people that you used to spend time with, or finding documentation from those nights, reminds you of who you've done all this for, because I have strived to kind of have stability, success, and to get my voice heard for that boy that didn't have that, didn't feel heard, didn't feel stable, didn't think he was ever successful enough, even when he was doing amazing things as a kid and a teenager, but it was always about striving. I did a podcast recently where they were like, what does success look like for you? And I was like, this. I'm successful now. Like, I can stop trying like to be successful. I can just try and kind of like work on my craft, work on making sure that we all have a chance, that like I'm mentoring people now. I'm kind of like trying to pay back as much as I can because I've been mentored, I've been supported, and I got to kind of acknowledge some of those people in my memoir. It's actually quite hard to pick the relevant stories and people to mention because, you know, there's a lot of overlap. A lot of people helped me in similar ways, but you can't tell too many of the same stories in a memoir. So, you know, I do mention Ajamu, I do mention Benjamin Zephaniah, because they had really formative, you know, moments with me where they just kind of showed me something about myself, like, and gave me a sense of self-belief and encouraged me to carry on as I was. Not just like, oh, you could do well if, you know, a lot of people were trying to tell me how to do better, how if I change this and that, whereas I feel like Ajamu and Topher as well, Topher Campbell, like, you know, just saw me as me and said, you are enough, you know, and Benjamin Zephaniah, like, your poetry is fantastic, just keep getting it out there. And that was great.
What are some of the ways you've learned to surrender to the creative impulse?
I mean, it's rarely coming like lightning from the gods. I think the only piece of my writing that just came to me was I'm Nobody's Nigger. Like, that just came. When the killers of Stephen Lawrence were convicted, I was like, I took a breath and I was like, I need to write something about this. I sat down, I wrote it, and it was a synergy of documentary that I'd watched, conversations I'd been having, and it just all just came out and it was done in an hour. Whereas most other things take so many kind of like drafts and revisiting and like cringing, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with like writing up to it. Like, so there might be lots of writing before you get to where the real piece starts. I'm okay with like overwriting and then realizing I already wrote the piece and I've carried on for pages and pages. And like, I'm also okay with kind of like just note taking and then kind of like fleshing out. And so it's just kind of from piece to piece, it really depends. Like, when I was writing the memoir, like, I got into the writing by kind of writing about where I was sat, how my body felt that day, you know, and like kind of taking in the environment, describing the room I was in. Because sometimes I was at home, but sometimes I was at my bouldering gym where I do bouldering. Sometimes I was in a cafe. Sometimes I was in a camper van with my partner. And so I just contextualized where I was before I then got to the point. And for me, that was a good exercise. And sometimes when I read it back, I thought it was really beautiful to know where I was. My editor was like, they don't care where you are. Just tell them the thing that they've come for. And so that was really good because I was like, okay, maybe some people would like that style. But I guess I'm trusting the editor that people just want the juicy stories and don't just want like the scenery. And I write really well in workshops. So I go to a lot of writing workshops. I love other people giving me prompts and just kind of like running with that. I love having a time limit when I'm in like a poetry writing workshop or in a writing retreat. Like, that is really generative for me. When I'm on a deadline, you know, it's kind of just like work, and it's like it's usually like 9 till noon, like kind of, you know, get up, do some exercise, have some breakfast, and then just write 9 till noon, and then you can like have lunch, you know? And
Do you resist yourself?
Resist in what way?
When you know something needs to come out and you say, no, I'm not ready for that.
Oh, no. I mean, I put things in my notes app on my phone. So if it's there and I'm on the move, I'll jot it down. Like,
Okay.
yeah, I might not revisit things, you know, once they're, like you say, they become real. So once it's there, then it might be like that, you know, notebook goes somewhere else and I'll just start a new notebook.
Yeah, I'm never touching that again.
Yeah. But there may come a day when I'm like, actually, I'm ready for that piece. Some of the things I really thought were like so exposing or raw or scary, like give it a year or two, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's not so bad.
That's you know, I could fix that. Like, it might feel like unfinished still because you were too emotional when writing it. Sometimes it might feel like beautiful to see that raw emotion, but yeah, like there's no thing I'm afraid to touch, like, but I just might not publish it, you know, and that's the difference for me. It's like, you know, not everything I write is going to get published, and you know, that's by my choice, you know, because I could get book deals, like, but it's just not everything needs a book deal. Not everything needs an audience. It just sometimes needs to be written. That's it.
I'm curious about the archival memoir writing process and your work in schools and as a mentor to other writers and poets. What do you wish people were more aware of in their own lives that you would like to see documented, noted, honored? If you look back at your own memoir, is there something that you go, I wish I would have done X, Y, or Z more? And then as you're looking at a new generation, you're seeing maybe the same thing happening and you're like, no, you have to start doing X, Y, Z.
It's the people waiting for others to give them permission, you know, like in so many ways. The people I've mentored, you know, they want their family to understand their creative passions. And I'm like, why? Like, or, you know, the kids I meet, and this is different, but I'm going to say it, like the kids I meet, like wanting their, you know, parents to fully immediately understand their like non-binary or trans identity. And I'm like, that's a big ask actually, but like, you know, and it will take time. And it's like, if people see you living it joyfully, whether that's being an artist, being trans, they will come around. I do believe that. Like, and if not, you're going to find those people to go be joyful with, you know, you're going to find your tribe and you are going to fly. Being an artist is going to change you. It's going to change everything about you. And, you know, and it might change the routines of your day. It might change your outlook. It might change your social circle. And yes, there are some people that you are definitely going to want to stay connected to, but they're going to have to accept that you're changing. You know, if they're trying to drag you back to who you were, like that shouldn't fly. You know, you've got to be able to be, you know, the full expression of whatever self that you are trying to become. You only need to really be accepted by yourself and one other person, and the rest of the world, they might not be ready for it. You might not feel safe showing them that part of you, but it will come with time, you know. And I think I don't know, I feel like young people think they need to be finished, you know who they are by 15. Like when there's 50-year-olds and older that don't know who they are, and that's okay because we're always changing, you know, like. Two black boys in paradise. They won't be here forever, maybe just as long as this poem. These two black boys in paradise. Two black boys. Can you see them?
These two black boys are free. These two black boys are happy. Black boys are real boys. Black boys are not just little men.
Do you believe black boys are real? Like, for real, for real. Real black boys feel. These two black boys are a healing.
Did you poison the apple already? Did you dig up the tree? Are you trying to plant these black boys in the ground?
Did you call them apple thieves? Did you call the police? There are no police in paradise. There are no white people in this paradise.
The two boys in this poem have black boy names. They have grown up now, but their names still suit them. Masculinity has not been required of them.
They are in love with each other and they're in love with themselves. One kisses the other's Adam's apple. They don't make babies.
Maybe paradise is just meant for two people at a time. Maybe it will be two black girls in paradise next time. Maybe they won't have to be boys or girls.
Maybe it will be you in paradise with that person you have in mind right now.
Talk to me about the genesis of Two Black Boys in Paradise.
So I grew up Christian. I was baptized, confirmed in the Church of England. I went to Church of England primary and secondary schools. So my whole life was very much in the church. And the judgment of religion, the idea of going to hell, that homosexuality was a sin, was definitely something I was always aware of. I used to hear this phrase, it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. And so some time ago, I was asked by the Courtauld Gallery to write a piece inspired by a piece of art, and I chose a picture of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and I was like, I need to put two black queer people in paradise in Eden. And so a much longer poem actually came out. And I think I wrote a longer poem because I had a brief and a time slot to fill on that night, the performance that I was going to do. And I actually got to curate that night at the Courtauld. So I also had Keith Jarrett and Travis Alabanza and Sonority Turner. And it was a really beautiful night of all Black queer people responding to artworks. We didn't bill it as a Black queer night, it just was poets responding to art, and it was beautiful. And that piece, I performed it there. I just knew it had a life from the response it got, from just the way people were moved, the way I was moved, the way I felt healed by kind of just saying it out loud, being able to look, because there were a lot of white people there, like in saying there are no white people in this paradise, it felt so audacious. And I was like, but I made this paradise. I made it up. I can put whoever and keep out whomever I want. So it felt so powerful. And it was like, yeah, this is what it is to be a writer, an artist. Like, you get to set the terms. And so that was really powerful for me. And so, yeah, the poem went through some edits and kind of is in, There Is Still Love Here, but it also has then become stop motion animation, which is a whole nother medium that it was incredible to work with. Amazing director, puppet makers, like all these amazing people that kind of brought the boys to life. They're now called Dula and Eden. And they have a physical form. You can see what they look like if you watch the film on Channel 4. It's streaming on Channel 4, which is bonkers to say, because, there was so little for me. I didn't see myself on TV when I was a child. The only thing that came close was like Queer as Folk, and that wasn't a great example for a 15-year-old, like what he got up to. And I just feel like this is me getting to put out there what wasn't there when I was a kid, what I was so desperately looking for. And now, Black queer people are seeing ourselves on TV, in all forms of media more and more. And it feels incredible.
So I just looked up the etymological root of paradise, and it's royal enclosure.
Ah.
In the UK, there is the British Pilgrimage Trust, which is the charity focused on ensuring that more people understand pilgrimage as like a non-denominational reconnection to the animate grandeur of the earth, as David Abram would call it. And it can be spiritual, it can be religious. You can make a pilgrimage from, Keister St. Edmunds in Norfolk through to Norwich Cathedral, for example. Or you can just wander the bucolic countryside of the UK. And one of the things that I brought up at the gathering was the urban environment is also a reverential space, right? That for so many people, the paradise can be the enclosure of the city, right? That for certain communities who don't have access to paradise in the maybe traditional sense, that they also are noticing around themselves paradise, right? That they might have to steal those moments or find those enclosures within the enclosures. And I loved that came up for me in the stop motion of Two Boys in Paradise, was that there they were in the middle of this urban environment and they chose each other. They chose each other and they disappeared into paradise together.
Yeah.
And to me, that says a lot about our ability as queer Black people to see each other, right? To tend to each other in a really beautiful way. And so I just want to thank you as well for creating the kind of poetic structure for that image to travel to us as well, that we can be paradise for each other wherever we are.
Absolutely that. I'm so glad that was one of your takeaways, because we had to make decisions when making this poem visual as to how literal is anything, and so the natural environment that you see of paradise is a real paradise, but also them being together in the market stall, surrounded by other people. The minute they choose each other to embrace, to hold hands, to kiss, that is them choosing this paradise that they have between themselves. And that's, comes back to my earlier message about, all you need is one person really to see you, and then you are seen, and you can do that for yourself. But I think there's an extra dimension when there is another person that fully sees you and accepts you. And it's not something everyone gets. And so if you've felt it, you'll know it's such a special thing. And I think that's what, my relationship is for me with my partner. And we see each other, we see the good, the bad, the messy, the inner child, the inner parent, all the things going on for us, the shadows, and we accept, and I think that if you can be accepted, and if you can accept another person, then ultimately accept yourself, like it's huge, it's so liberating, and I think that's what we're hoping this film can offer to people, or suggest to people. But you got it, so I think it works.
Well, I was very glad to not see flowers.
Okay, why?
It's a real bugbear of mine that usually, like, it's a leitmotif, black men and flowers, as if the flowers, as if black men have to be softened by flowers.
This is my other book.
Okay.
It does happen sometimes.
Yeah, it does happen. But it was, and this came up in my research for a conversation with Alayo Kinkube. And, she took issue with black figuration during Black Lives Matter. And all of a sudden, all these institutions had, smiling black people all over their walls. And she was like, it was such like a one-note expression of blackness at a time when that was not what was being expressed by black people. And so how do you have that kind of juxtaposition? And then around that same time, we were seeing lots of beautiful, tender imagery of, black men, often nude, of course, why would we be clothed? Draped in flowers. And I was like, what is it about the flower? What is it about the black man's body that requires a flower for softness?
Interesting.
For people, And so what I loved, especially about the visuals that accompany this beautiful, intimate, tender, erotic poem, is that these black men, these black boys did not require any additional softening.
Yeah.
The two of them were the soft place for each other to land.
Yes.
I think that says a lot. That says a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thank you, Josh.
Dean, to close our conversation, I actually don't know how I want to close it. Let me ask Spirit 1 second. Yeah, it's a question about love. I don't have a question about love, but the feeling is love.
I mean, I'm leading with love, and I think at the moment that very much has to include self-love, as it always should, but where I feel my health is kind of being compromised by working or overworking, I've got to kind of readjust my boundaries, and I've got to kind of find that kind of, what did you call your no? It was such a good...
My divine no.
I've got to find my divine no, because I've not been saying yes for people-pleasing reasons. I've been saying yes because I see the importance of the work, and I see the value I'm going to add to being involved in the projects I'm being asked to be part of. But at the same time, if I add value and then perish, that's no good. I want to keep adding value. I want longevity of my life, of my career, of my relationship. So I don't want any resentment to grow because I said yes to too many things. So the loving thing is for me to say no sometimes, so that I can show up where I absolutely have to, and do what I absolutely need to, what couldn't be done without me, because I think, just finding that balance of do you need to do that, or is that your ego not wanting to let that go to someone else? Or,
Listen.
Right? And I'm trying to keep my ego in check as much as I can.
I think that for those of us who are even attentive to that, that's part of the work, actually, and Michael Meade, I was really inspired by something he shared. Michael Meade is, for those who are unfamiliar, a mythologist, and I highly recommend following his podcast, The Living Myth. It's so enlivening. And he says, creativity isn't yours. Like, don't let your ego believe that you are the source of creativity. You are a repetition of the original creation, and you are a channel for it.
Yeah.
Your job is to loosen yourself up for whatever needs to come through you.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, actually, what right do I have to close myself off to the fascinations of the spirit? Like, I'm here to keep myself open.
Yeah, it's like the sculptors that say, like, the piece is already in the marble and you're just finding it. Like, I love that. Yeah.
It's very cool. Artists are so cool. Dean, do you have a favorite poem from There Is Still Love Here? And if so, will you read it to close our conversation?
Yes, I think because we've talked about flowers, I think this is the perfect one. It's called On Days When. On days when you feel like a wilting garden, gather yourself, roll up your lawn, bouquet your flowers, embrace your weeds. You are a wild thing, playing at being tame. You are rich with life beneath the surface. You don't have to show leaf and petal to be living. You are soil and insect and root.
Dean, thank you so much for joining me on Busy Being Black. And for being part of this journey with me. I admire you a great deal. And yes, if I can do anything to support your vision, to support the tender and enlivening impact you're having in the world, I'm standing by.
Thank you. Likewise, all of that.
Busy being black. Busy.